conducted outdoor schools camp, Magruder, located at Rockaway Beach. They have prepared a presentation to highlight their experiences. Please join me in welcoming Principal Hutz and Miss Ahern and the Blueberry students.
We are Blueberry 6th grade groups, and they are Bella, Mireya, Olivia, Kiana, Ronaldo, and Jaya Esmeralda.
Somos el grupo de sexto grado, Bella, Mireya, Olivia, Kiana, Esmeralda y yo soy Ronaldo.
Outdoor school is especially effective because we learn about nature than being at school. We have more freedom and we get to move around more. We get to be in the outdoors. Honestly, we get to meet new people from different schools. We get to learn about the environment. Finally, we get more environmental education, and we get to learn about the global warming. Those are the important facts about outdoor school.
La escuela de aire libre es muy importante ya que estando allá aprendemos más acerca de la naturaleza. Estando dentro de la escuela tenemos más libertad y oportunidad de ejercitarnos, estar en ese aire libre. Constantemente conocemos más personas de diferentes escuelas, conocemos el medio ambiente que nos rodea. Finalmente tenemos más educación acerca del medio ambiente y entendemos más el calentamiento global. Esas cosas son las cosas importantes acerca de la escuela aire libre.
At outdoor school, we had a great learning experience. We learned about our environment, like pollution in cities, farms, and even the forest.
We had animal study where we learned about our ecosystem and how without even one small animal, our ecosystem could fall apart.
During our Earth study, we all got to go to the beach and make a giant map of Oregon in the sand.
In my opinion, water study was my favorite study. We tromped through wetlands and caught slimy critters. In fact, we had so much fun, my friend Kiana here fell in the water.
Yeah, we all remember that. It was really fun, except for that part, of course.
I hope that anyone else that comes to Newberry can have just as wonderful experience as we did and learn just as much.
Thank you, board members, for the opportunity to go to outdoor school. It is extremely important for us to go to outdoor school because it will help the kinesthetic learners in our grade to do better in science. It is also entertaining to learn more for students with naturalistic intelligence. It was so magnificent when we went on a night hike and we put mints in our mouths and they all sparked. Another experience we had at the night hike was receiving colored pieces of construction paper, guessing its color, then observing in light it is definitely not the color you guessed previously. We then learned that in the dark, your eyes only see a little bit of color. Those experiences were amazing, and we'd like all future generations to go to outdoor school as well.
Thank you for your time.
As our grand finale, we will sing you a song we learned at outdoor school.
Ground keeps moving under me. Tidal waves out on the sea. Smoke up in the sky. Pretty soon I'll learn to fly. I don't know.
time there. But I really encourage you to remember and keep those memories in your heart, because when you get into high school, you'll have an opportunity to do some payback and become counselors and really enjoy it from a different perspective. So I just love outdoor school. In fact, one of the nurses here in the district, we went to outdoor school together in 6th grade from 2 different schools. So whenever we see each other, we always laugh about our cabin stories. So just remember that and do it in high school. It's awesome.
Hey, is Paul still here from the ESP? I thought I saw him. Anyway, you thank the school board for helping pay for outdoor school. Also, we should thank Northwest Regional ESP, who also pays a big portion.
There you go.
There. You have no idea why you're applauding for it, but it doesn't happen often, so we might know.
Paul, we were just talking about outdoor school and how ESP is a valuable partner in that work. Awesome. Thank you all so much for being here this evening. We really appreciate it. And you are totally welcome to leave and not stay for a really long, boring meeting. Our feelings will not be hurt. You all can't leave yet. You're still on it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And thank you for our name tags. Thank you. Very fun. All right, and with that, I'd be looking for approval of agenda.
I move that we approve the revised agenda that adds item 8F, approve the purchase of wireless network components.
Second. Any questions or comments? So it's been moved by Wayne, seconded by Jenny to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. And now we're going to move into audience participation time. If you are here and wanted to speak to the board this evening, there are forms to fill out on the back table, and you can hand them to Ms. Bachma. I currently have quite a few. Public participation in board meetings is governed by policy BBH. Patrons may comment on specific agenda items at the beginning of the meeting or at the discretion of the board chair. They may be deferred to the time the item is before the board as stated in the agenda. Comments about non-agenda items will be heard during audience time at the beginning of this meeting, and speakers shall be limited to 3 minutes. And I currently have a few non-agenda items that we'll take, and then for those that are around the policy update, we'll take those when we get to that action item. So the first one is Brian, and Brian, I'm afraid I'm going to mess up the last name. It starts with a Z. Zamolek?
Zamolek.
Sorry, thank you. And so Brian, when you come up, if you could state your name and your address for the record, and then we'll start the timer for you. I will ask, since there's quite a few this evening, when you hear that timer, if you can finish your sentence or thought, that would help us get everybody else in as well.
My name is Brian Zamolek, address 2070 Northeast Lower Court. My wife and I have lived in Hillsboro for 18 years. Our 3 oldest kids are all graduates of Hillsboro School District, and our youngest is a freshman at Liberty this year. Came to my first board meeting last month because I'm interested in hearing how the board is going to address the revisions to, or at least consider the changes to the health education, including the sex ed, and a lot of us are interested in that. I have a short laundry list of things and general comments from the last board meeting. First of all, for the uninitiated, is there a decoder ring somewhere that explains what the initials are in the different policies? For example, policy GBA, GCDA, HDDA, what does all that mean? And for those that don't have enough to do or read, where can we find out what those codes mean? Northwest Regional Education Service District reported that they're going to rebate $170,000 back to the school district. I'm curious to know what the district plans to do with that money. And Director Solomon, you highlighted some interest in the Healthy Teen Toolkit from the Oregon State Education Board in teen dating violence. I'm curious to know what the district's role in that curriculum would be. And why the board would be interested in that. And I'm very curious to see how the Citizens Curriculum Advisory Council, our committee, what their opinions are on the sex education policy that the district is looking at. And finally, one of the mothers that commented last month explained that she often had to debrief her son sometimes for an hour a day when he would come home from school after having been through his health class. And I'm curious how is it that a parent who has to debrief their child about what they may consider morally objectionable material, a model for health education? I don't see that, and I'm not convinced that that's a model. And when finally, as a parent of Catholic kids, we raised our kids Catholic. Many school districts and states around the country have policies that allow minors to have an abortion without parental consent, and yet the school cannot administer over-the-counter medication without parental permission. And I'm not suggesting that we're in that position here, but it seems to me that the trend is that way, and I caution the district and the board to look at things in the light of the disconnect that is between those two extremes. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service to the board.
Thank you. And just so audience members know, this is typically a place where we get to hear from patrons, but it's not designed as a back and forth or an opportunity where we all get to respond. And so I don't know, Mike, if there's someone that we could help with some of the questions.
Yeah, we can.
Outside of.
Yeah, we can arrange to have someone meet with you. We've got your contact information and your address now, so we might just. But in terms of the policy codes and the decoder ring, they're really each set of policies has to do with a specific topic. So, for example, one might be curriculum. I think those are the I's. Personnel would be the J's, et cetera, et cetera. You would never guess it. I mean, you could look them all up on the district website, and there's a group of the codes along with which policy it represents. So that'd be the best place to go there. We have not talked specifically with the board about the money that additional money from the ESD. We do know that we've got some curriculum renewal when it comes to math, and some adoptions that are coming up that are likely going to outpace the amount of money that we have set aside for that. So that's part of the conversation that we'll be having with the board down the road. But that decision has not been made yet. And specific to your sex ed question, we'll get someone in touch with you those if they're not answered later as we go through this.
Thank you.
And next is Pete Pringle. And Pete, same thing, if I can have you do your name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
My name is Pete Pringle. Address is 1700 Northeast Trisha Drive. Thank you for the opportunity to present to the board tonight. I have a concern about the Hillsboro School District practice, the way they date diplomas for students that take longer than 4 years or less than 3 years. That the current practice, from what I'm told from staff members in the district, is the student's diploma is based on the entry year of 9th grade and dated 4 years after that, regardless of their graduation date. What brought this to light was my son. He graduated in June in 2014. Got his diploma, it was dated June 2013. My son is gone, and he put in an application for college, and he's off and has already left the state. But the college asked for a copy of the transcript and his diploma. And there are several universities and colleges in the United States that ask for both of those documents. But when they get those two documents and the dates don't match, that causes quite a question as to both documents being valid or not. So it hurts the student, it delays the admission into the college, and ultimately could dismiss them from getting into the college. Another concern on the date being a year prior for the students that take, say, 5 years. is employment also. So if a student gets done with high school and they want to find employment, they have a graduation date on a diploma, which is pretty much a basic requirement of any job, is a high school diploma, and they have to show proof sometimes, not all the time. But if they have it dated 2013, they're looking for a job late in 2014, there's a year gap. And employers do not like to see gaps when they're hiring someone. They'll pass them by and hire someone else that doesn't have that gap. Or if they put on the application they graduated 2014, their document shows, and then there's a question and it doesn't look good. What I'm asking here is to address that, if the board could address that policy and make the changes in the best interest of the students. And I've addressed this with some of the staff at the district and have gotten nowhere. I've addressed it with the state. The state was totally unaware of the practice at Hillsboro School District, and apparently the state had never heard of that such a practice being in place anywhere in any school district. The colleges I talked to had never heard of such a practice and had never run into mismatching dates on diplomas and transcripts before they depart. So this is a unique problem just within the Hillsboro School District as far as I know. So I'm asking that the policy be changed to where the actual diplomas will be dated coherently with their actual graduation date. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have any specific answer for you on that one, but we will dig into it and I will contact you. We'll be back in touch with you. I don't have any specific information I can respond to at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, I would be looking for a motion for the consent agenda. The others are all related to, oh, sorry, I thought I did. For the other people who want to speak to the board that are related to the specific agenda item, we will take those when we get to that specific agenda item. And I think they're all related to the health policy, so. All right, sorry about that. Consent agenda. Let's go there next.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any questions? It's been moved by Monty, seconded by Eric to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And now this will be the first of our action items. The first one is to elect, I believe our representative is Leanne Larson to the OSBA Board of Directors. Does anyone else have luck getting on the computer? Okay. No. So for those,
Good job.
half of us have the packet of information and half of us don't, because sometimes technology works and sometimes doesn't. So I will be asking for help for those board members who have a packet in front of them to make motions, please.
Okay. Well, then, if you'd like, I will make the motion that the Board of Directors vote for a representative for a position the OSBA Board of Directors, Leanne Larson.
I second. Okay. Questions or comments?
So we usually have two.
There's two, and it's position 15 and 16, and 16 is not up yet. And that's Maureen from Gender Dwellington. Her term's not up, so this one's just a term is up on this one. Any questions or comments? I'll say that Leanne is delight, and in my experience, and a very hard worker, and I love the work that she and Maureen are doing together to present a united front to represent Washington County, and to also feed back information to us as they gather information and represent us. So. All right, so it's been moved by Glenn and seconded by Adriana to appoint Leanne Larson to the OSBA Board of Directors. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And next on the agenda is to vote on the OSBA resolutions. So I'm going to thumb through paper packet here. So I would look for a motion first, and then we can get into the discussion about it.
All right, so I will make the motion that the Board of Directors vote on the OSBA proposed resolution.
Second. Perfect. Questions and comments about the resolution, Eric?
Yeah, so I actually don't like their legislative priorities, and I think we should vote against them. I have three big problems with them. First one is that I think they talk about unfunded mandates, but in kind of a toothless way, as opposed to the specifics we discussed in our local, unfunded mandates discussion in the work session. They make a general statement, but they don't come up with a list of specifics. And I think, having these unfunded mandates complaints without listing specifics is a way to make it look like you're doing something when you're really not. The second problem I have with these legislative priorities is that they don't like charter schools very much. Oregon's known for having one of the weakest charter school laws in the country. And one of the things that other states do to sort of allow more opportunities for students and more alternatives is to allow non-district entities to sponsor charter schools. And these legislative priorities specifically say we want to stop the state from allowing non-district entities to sponsor charter schools. I really don't think that should be in there. And the third thing is that they want to get rid of the kicker, which I think is a controversial political topic that I suspect people on this board are of many different opinions on. I don't think this belongs in the OSBA priorities.
Okay. Yeah, Ben?
Yeah, well, you pretty much stole a lot of my thunder. I knew you do the charter school one, but I have to say that I do agree with you, particularly on the kicker. I know it's not necessarily popular, but I want to see stable funding for schools as well. But this is something that the voters have consistently said to Oregon: stop messing with my kicker check. And Oregon's not getting the message, or at least the legislative thing. So I do have some concerns overall with this, but most of this I do support. So I'm kind of like, 80% is okay, 20% is bad. How do you decide? You can't go, we're going to do this. So I'm going to vote for it with reservations, but I do agree completely with what my colleague Eric said.
Okay, Janine?
I think that what Eric is saying, I think that leads to further discussion with OSBA, because I think their points are somewhat similar with ours, that they're trying to say that we need to create a dialogue with our legislators on, but maybe we need to ask them for more specifics to really give them that feedback that says, don't just say unfunded mandates, really put some real specifics in there as to what that means. Because I have to comment that on the legislative priorities for the district, I was really impressed with that there was valid numbers and such. And as we talked about upstairs, those are what legislators really claw onto. They like those real stories. They like the numbers. They like to be able to go down on the floor and be able to say, this is what this means. And so I think giving OSBA that feedback is valid. So I do support their proposed legislative priorities, and I think that the reason that kicker reform is put in there is because consistently we've talked about at a state level about stable funding and such for districts, and the fact that Oregon has some of the least amount of seat time and the challenges that we face. So I think maybe this is a way that they're trying to look at looking at the funding structure for our schools, is that reinvestment, is making sure that we're investing in education. So I support this.
Anyone else? I was wondering if we could get agreement perhaps on the legislative priorities. I don't want to get stuck in the weeds. I think we agree. We may not all agree on how to get to stable and adequate funding, but I think we all agree on the concept of stable and adequate funding. Would anyone entertain the idea of the first two pages of the policies are sort of the umbrella of, don't oppose mandates, provide stable, adequate funding, support student achievement. Could we get some agreement maybe around those bigger concepts? And then maybe share our feedback with them about where we were divided, or which details created a problem for us. Or the second option is because of the size of our district, we get 2 votes for each resolution. So if there was a split board on the policies and the resolutions, we could also show that in our vote. So anyone feel strongly?
On your first option, what would be the outcome of the action we would take? Are you saying to something like approve the general item, but follow it with detail?
I think I would follow it with just feedback to them that we weren't in agreement on all all the sort of proposals that followed, but we were in agreement with the overall priorities.
The stem, just not the roots.
It just doesn't.
I don't know, I don't like that. I mean, I think the way that we tell the OSBA that they really need to do something differently is by voting down their legislative priorities. If we try to agree and disagree with them, they'll just say, oh yeah, they're with the program, and they'll move on. I think if we want them to actually listen to us, I think sending a strong message by voting against the priorities is the best way to do it.
So we can take a vote on the resolution, and then based on the outcome of that vote, we can choose whether or not it will be 2 votes or 1 vote, how we want to divide the vote. That sounds reasonable.
Wait, so how are you going to get from a first vote to how to...
So I think if we go with Eric's idea, it's either a yes or a no. So if we ended up with a split vote of 4-3, I would suggest that we would do 1 yes vote and 1 no vote. I would say if it's a vote of 7-0 or 6-1, I would do 2 votes and control the majority, I would guess.
It's an interesting way to try to agree but send the message that there are fundamental issues.
Well, the motion on the table is to approve the, so I think let's do it, there's 3 resolutions. We should probably do it 1 resolution at a time. And the first one is the legislative priorities, which is the one that we've been discussing. So, do we have to restate that resolution? So that includes that it's just that the motion is only on resolution 1?
I think you have to amend it.
So can I ask, Glenn and Ginny, can you read, what's the motion?
So I will amend my, whatever, brain lock there. So yeah, I'll amend my motion to say that we're going to actually vote on the 3 resolutions separately.
Okay. And so I'd be looking for a motion to approve resolution 1, which is the legislative priorities.
Okay, so I'll make that motion to approve.
Perfect. Second. Any further conversation around resolution 1, legislative priorities? All right. So the motion is to approve the resolution 1, which is OSBA legislative priorities. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, I'm going to have to show hands. Let's do it one time. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Sorry, Val, I'll try to get to that. And then all those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, so it was 4-3, 3-4, sorry, 3 yes, 4 no. So then we would go with the notion of a 1 vote for each, 1 yes vote and 1 no vote.
Who seconded that?
Ginny and Judy. And then I'd be looking for a motion for resolution 2, which is around the OSBA Constitution.
So I can make a motion for the OSBA Constitution amendment that we approve it.
Just read them.
Do I have to read?
To amend the OSBA Constitution to modify the process for the adoption of OSBA's legislative policy.
Oh my God, now this is
She said it better than I did.
Okay, do you want to second it there, Glenn?
Sure.
Perfect. Anyone have questions or comments about the second resolution? All right, it's been moved by Ginny and seconded by Glenn to approve Resolution 2 to amend the OSBA Constitution to modify the process for adoption of OSBA's legislative policies. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And then we look at Resolution 3.
I make a motion to amend the OSBA Constitution to allow appointment of the OSBA Board and Legislative Policy Committee members from the contiguous region if certain conditions are met.
And I will second that one.
Perfect. Anyone have questions or comments on this one? So it's been moved by Ginny and seconded by Glenn to approve Resolution 3 of the OSBA resolution. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, and then Ms. Val, if you would help get all those to where they need to be. Thank you. The next item is the OSBA Promise of Oregon campaign resolution to pass the recommended language from that resolution. I could get a motion on that,
All right, I will move that the board of directors accept the OSBA Promise of Oregon campaign and vote on whether to adopt the resolution and join in support.
I'll second the motion. There we go. And I know most of you have seen these materials or seen a portion of these materials. Are we queued up that we can show the Promise of Oregon video, the short?
Oh, good.
I thought it would be nice to show it so if you hadn't had a chance to look at it, you can get a general feel for. This is a marketing campaign that was organized by OSBA to remind community members all across the state about the value of children and that they are our best natural resource.
Center one?
Is the center the short one?
Yes.
That's one, yes, please. I want you to.
I'm the promise of Oregon because I want to be a gardener and make more air in the world.
I'm the Promise of Oregon because
I'm going to stop their needs, help people bring babies into the world.
Help people understand different cultures better. I'm going to the Olympics and I'm going to win gold in the 200 meter.
I'm the Promise of Oregon because I'm a sixth generation farmer and rancher and I want to continue.
I want to stop bullying and have everyone be friends.
I hope to influence Oregon public policy.
I want to make people happy every day.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
yes, yes,
Yes, I'm the promise of Oregon. Yes, I'm the promise of Oregon.
yes, I am the Promise of Oregon.
And so for those of you who were at convention, they sort of launched this campaign when we were at the state convention with, of course, there's some materials that go with it. There's longer videos, and this is an ad campaign that will be showcased all around the state. And there was a desire for school boards to pass a resolution in support of this work as just sort of refocusing everyone in the state's energy back on education as a way of reminding us and grounding our work. And so tonight the motion on the table would be to pass the resolution and hopes of being added to a list of districts all around the state that are doing that, and then of course hoping that that would provide just some press around that this is the work they're grounded in. Good reminder of that. Any questions or comments? Glenn, yeah, you saw it.
Yeah, I just want to say that at the convention, there was about, I don't know how many of us, several hundred, and I have to tell you, this was actually very, very well received. Everyone in the audience just loved this particular program. And I'm not one who goes in for a lot of things, and not kind of a logical guy, but I do see a real value in actually telling a positive story. So for that reason, I actually do urge us to accept this and look forward to promote it. I can't see a downside.
Yeah, the video should have convention was a lot longer.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Adriana and then Eric.
I just want to remind, that this is what it's all about. It's about our children, it's about the next generation, and it's about the promises that we have to the next generation. So as a board, I fully support this promise.
So I want to respond to Glenn's challenge of finding a downside to this. I know people are going to accuse me of hating children and education and cute puppies and stuff, but one thing that bothers me a little bit about this resolution is it's explicitly political, right? It's talking about how this campaign is to drive political lobbying and stuff. And remember, the OSBA ultimately is funded by the individual school districts, right, paying their membership fees out of tax dollars. So we're essentially redirecting people's tax dollars to persuade them to give us more tax dollars. And that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I don't think we should be in the position of using tax money to lobby for more tax money. So that's why, I think, of course I can't disagree with stuff in the, in the video, but I do think that we probably shouldn't support this resolution.
So, if I might respond to my friend here, I appreciate what you're saying. I would just say that there's a difference between actively marketing and telling your story. We are an organization, among many organizations, have real needs. We can all disagree about what the funding levels and priorities should be, but there's never a bad thing to tell positive stories of what you're doing well and why you're here. So that's because we are an important part of the budget. Now, granted, we're already the biggest budget line, education, in the state. And there's a reason for that. So we're definitely going to take some pot shots. People at us for various things because everybody has needs. So if we don't tell our story, then we're going to be, basically other people will tell theirs and then they're going to get the attention. Now, I understand and agree with you that using children to apply to the legislature for money because children work well, I don't agree with doing that. But I don't really see that here that we're doing that. We're not actually putting a busload of kids, sitting on the sale and saying, you need more money. This is just saying, hey, this is what we're here for. So, okay.
Having taken kids to Salem, I'm telling you that I did not feel like I was selling my soul. My kids have no problem standing up and telling legislators what they expect out of this community and what they want to be able to give back to this community. And if we don't properly educate them, they can't do that. So absolutely teaching kids to advocate for themselves, I have no problems with that. Adriana?
I just want to address again the diversity of thought with our board, and thank you for your opinion. I appreciate it very well. I also see this as humanity. I see this as our future, and for those who can tie a dollar bill and they're trying to utilize our children, makes us and should make us think as board members why we're here and the work that we do. If we think we're utilizing our children to gain more dollars, then that's again the diversity of thought based on experience. So I know that you're not a child hater, so you mentioned that. No one else here did. So I just want to reaffirm that you are not, because you would not be on this board if you were. Thank you.
Any other comments? So the motion on the table is to approve the Promise of Oregon campaign resolution. It was moved by Glenn and seconded by myself. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Is that 2 nay? Thank you. Motion carries. And next is to approve the high school course modification in human geography. Travis, and are you bringing it up, Ms. Allen?
I let her off the hook. If she would answer any questions that might come up.
Thank you.
So, good evening. Today's the end of the review period for the course modification proposal that came forward from Sunny Hayden and Karen Shea at Glencoe High School. I haven't received any questions about the proposal, and last time we came with the recommendation from the CCAC that they unanimously recommended that it be approved. I did want to address a question that Wayne had about the possibility of looking for more opportunities to map more rigorous courses onto the not less rigorous, but the standard course sequence that students take. And I brought that up with our coordinator of secondary teaching and learning. We're going to look at that. AP European history was an example that came up, and AP human geography seems to map right onto world studies, and AP European history does less. But we're going to start to review what of our more advanced options might be replacement, or what students might be able to use as replacement credits for those common course sequences. So thanks for bringing that question.
And would that information come back to us in a weekly update? Would that be something that we presented at a board meeting?
Yeah, let's bring it back to the board.
Sure.
That'd be helpful.
It might come back in the form of more modification proposals, unless you want a more specific overview of that.
I mean, I think if you came back and you decided there wasn't going to be any course modification, I would like to know that, as well as where they stand.
At this time, there is no further proposals.
Thank you. So I'd be looking for a motion.
I move we approve the proposed course modification AP Human Geography.
Second. Any questions or comments for Travis? This is exciting.
Thank you. I would just say, let me know that we would welcome any additional requests for advanced coursework curriculum to be an alternative for the standard curriculum available to schools.
I appreciate
that. Please bring them.
Thank you.
All right, so it's been moved by Monty, seconded by Janine to approve the course modification. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Travis. Thank you to Citizens Curriculum Committee for working on that. And next we have 3 policy revisions. The first one, Saida, policy GBN JBA.
What does that mean?
That means sexual harassment, hazing, harassment, intimidation, bullying, menacing, and cyberbullying.
So good evening. On November 18th, I brought forward to the board policy, the recommendations for revisions to policy GBN/JBA, which is the sexual harassment policy, as well as policy GBNA, which is the hazing, harassment, intimidation, bullying, menacing, and cyberbullying harassment policy. And the modifications that were made basically highlighted the prohibition of conduct which was off-duty behavior that affected and interfered with the staff's ability or third party's ability to perform business. There were no questions during the review period, so if there are any questions at this point.
If I can get a motion first, and then we can give any questions or comments.
I make a motion to approve the recommended revisions to policy GBN/JBA, sexual harassment, and GBNA, hazing, harassment, intimidation, bullying, menacing, cyberbullying.
A second. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Saida? All right, so it's been moved by Judy and seconded by Adriana to approve the revisions. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. The next one is policy IGAI, human sexuality. This is the one where we have some public comment. So what we'll do first is we'll take the presentation from Travis, then we'll take audience participation, and then we can make a motion and do board discussion.
I have some handouts. I have a second to distribute more information. So, we'll just take some of those and pass them down. Pass them over there. Make sure that these catch up
Is there a way to project? Is that projecting?
Can you talk there about them?
Yep. So, tonight is the end of a 60-day review process for an update to policy IGAI. What I wanted to do before I make some specific recommendations about language in the policy proposal, I wanted to run the board through a communication plan that I put in place after some concerns were expressed in October, and then again with feedback that I got in November. And I want to talk about the experience that we created for the Citizens Curriculum Advisory Committee to give us some feedback about how to do better specifically around communications and curriculum review. What I want to share is that if you get a chance to thank a CCAC member, I gave them a huge homework assignment, which was essentially to review the law, the policy, specific curriculum that was in question called My Future, My Choice, and then even down to letters that we provide to schools to send home to educate parents about our health curriculum. So after, right now I'm on this document right here, the communication plan. After providing links to all the resources that I asked the CCAC to review, I provided this document, a large, small print one. This is actually in the form of a Google form where the questions across the top were available with open boxes for folks to write. Sorry, Beth. I'm getting accused to speak loud. The questions across the top were the homework assignment. Can you hear me?
I just wasn't sure the mic was on.
Yeah, it doesn't sound very loud.
It looks like it's on.
Tap it.
I'll speak louder and with conviction.
There you go.
Okay. The questions across the top were the homework assignment. So after reviewing all the different materials, please type your thoughts into the boxes. And really specifically, we talked about how, when we talk about our community, the Hillsboro community, we really are made up of multiple communities. And CCAC members represent a diverse cross-section of our community, from parents, students, grandparents, community members, a college student. And what I asked them to do was to review the materials and from the perspective of the community, or communities plural, that they feel a part of in Hillsboro, to respond and answer honestly. What are your concerns about the curriculum? What are your concerns about our communications and how we notify students and parents of their rights? And how can we do better? The feedback from this wasn't necessarily to generate a whole bunch of questions to answer. It was more like, give us feedback that would help us come up with a project plan to be better communicators and to give folks the opportunity that is their right to review curriculum if they want to opt out. So that's the context, and I asked CCAC members to provide this information anonymously. One of them chose to write her name in there. She didn't care if it was known that this is what she wrote. But I am sensitive to the fact that CCAC members are given really honest information in this document and to handle it sensitively. During the last CCAC meeting, we had a chance to debrief the patterns that we see in the data here, the responses. And I came up with, and now I'm on this communication plan draft again, I came up with 3 general responses to the homework project, as it's become affectionately known. The first is consistent communication at home regarding health education and parents' rights is something that we need to improve. The second, more detail on topics covered grade by grade, and specifically, there was a request to be more specific about the topics that we cover in grades 6, 7, and 8. The third is that more clarity on opt-out processes and rights is a request from our community or communities. So that's item number 1 in the communication plan. Item number 2 is a project plan that I hope to execute in the next couple of months. And I just want to go through point by point and get any feedback that I can regarding these proposed action items. We're going to develop a letter from the Office for School Performance that would go home to parents in the summer packet. A bunch of information goes home, and it's our chance to notify our community about important topics. A draft of a high school letter is on the back of that sheet. And this is a communication home that would have hyperlinks. If it were accessed on our website, it would have hyperlinks right to the other information. If it went home on paper, parents could get support from us in accessing those resources. But it basically talks about the rights of parents and families and our values around working with families to ensure that they can review curriculum and opt out of any instructional activities if they see fit to do so. Those would go home specifically for elementary families, middle school families, and high school families in a differentiated way. Secondly, we would send letters from schools, including the syllabus and standards covered like we currently do, but that would come out in a more uniform way, given templates that we could provide and build with our elementary school teachers. So 5th and 6th grade teachers would have a uniform way of notifying families and having that local conversation, because we know that families trust teachers and principals at the school and want to dialogue with them more than they do folks who work at the district office. Health teacher PLCs. We're going to bring together and have brought together health teachers K-6 and then 7-12 in separate groups with some of our curriculum coordinators. And the purpose of doing that is to make sure that what we offer in health curriculum across the district is consistent, and that we make public the following types of materials for review by families. Common plan course statements and pacing guides, common syllabi for classes, secondary school practice, common curriculum maps. And what we might do is bring those PLCs together and ask them if they have insufficient or inadequate supplemental materials to deliver what's on that curriculum map. And in the case where they feel like that's the case, we would bring that to the CCAC for their feedback on the materials. But right now, what we feel is important, given the feedback of our community members, is that folks need to be able to see day by day, week by week in those health units what's delivered grade by grade. And we think that the best way to do that would be to organize a website where those materials are public, just like they are for My Future, My Choice. So while right now I can click on every tool, every question and worksheet that's in my future, my choice, we want to provide that for our families in the form of a curriculum map with links to whether it's a scanned PDF of a textbook page or whether it's online resources that are our approved supplementals so that parents can review that more easily. So D is a website and the components that would be part of that website, references to the law, the standards, adopted curriculum, planned course statements and pacing guides, syllabi, curriculum maps, and then documents for notification of parents, including those letters that I mentioned, and then information about exempting students. So that information came directly from my conversations with our extended community as well as the CCAC. I want to hit some specific recommendations. Well, one more point about the feedback, I'm sorry. There was a lot of conversation and there are a lot of opinions about the health curriculum. But the general consensus seems to be that we have an obligation to teach the standards, and that's frustrating for different stakeholders. But what we, in general, have learned is that we need to engage our community. We need to protect parents' rights to access curriculum and to exempt their students from activities. And we need to focus on communication and transparency. So those are themes that I just wanted to communicate really clearly out of the work of the CCAC and in my conversations with different stakeholders who shared at board meetings. Any questions about that before I make specific recommendations and pass through the policy?
Do you have any comments on the draft now or do you want them later?
That would be great. I honestly, this is a working draft.
Yeah.
Part of the reason that I'm sharing is because I would love to see if it needs
My
approval.
only comment is I think that the summer packet is really good. I think if parents only read one thing that comes home, especially of high school students, secondary students, is that summer packet because so much comes. I mean, yes, there's a lot of information, but it does seem to be the one thing that doesn't get lost in the background. And so I like that notion that you're kind of giving them a preview of what's coming, even if it's not coming in September.
Thank you.
I know it would catch my eye as a parent.
Thank you.
Eric?
Oh, yeah, so just one thing, on the website here, I think we should really try to err on the side of transparency whenever we can, right? I think we should have an explicit policy that every piece of material used in these classes should be on the website unless it's protected by copyright, in which case there should be a link to the Google Books page or something for it. So, I mean, I think there's no reason why any parent should ever have to wonder what's happening in their child's classroom on this topic. If we have it, we should post it. The cost is near zero to post something on the web these days.
Thank you.
Anyone else with comments on the draft?
The opt-out privilege for parents, do we describe that in the policy anywhere?
Yeah, we have a district policy, but what I refer to in the letter is the actual OAR. So if you look at the back of that sheet, the draft letter there.
But if I was just to look at the policy, I wouldn't see the opt-out provision.
That's right. No, the policy, I'm going to recommend that we have, that the policy would direct people toward that website so that they could get all the information that they need.
But a
So the
parent
policy-
would receive this letter, Monty, that would have the information, and they wouldn't have to go look for the policy.
Right.
They could if they wanted to, if they read this letter, but this would direct them where to go.
I also was coached that there's no precedent really for adding, say, like a form for exemption within a policy. So we'd have to either get them to a link or
Yeah, I was just talking about the process. How do you?
descriptive. Okay. We do have that in district policy, and we have provided some guidance for principals on how to be able to have that conversation and provide the avenue for a parent to provide a written request for exemption and a proposal for what the replacement activity would be.
Could that be part of the letter? That either goes home in the summer packet or goes out of the course syllabi?
A step-by-step description. It's a good idea.
Any other comments on the draft before he goes into policy language? And since it is a draft and not a policy item, if people have feedback, they can just direct it to you. It's going to be working hard for a little bit. I'm assuming. It's not something we would officially approve out.
No, I'm just looking for feedback from the board.
Thank you.
So the
Okay, go ahead, Janine.
Can we talk about this being electronic? This is electronic as well, correct? This is going to be on the web.
We talked about, yes, not the communication, but this is just a tool for my team and me.
Okay.
I'm sure that the CCA, they're supporting this work. What would be electronic would be the letters and the law and the curriculum, the PDFs. So,
And I think it's really, another thing that's important for people to look at is if they're considering this and they want to get all the information, is to review the standards, the 63 pages of health standards that is, required. So I think it's, to have that information that parents can look at and understand what is, necessary to be taught in school in an informative, factual way.
I also really like the idea mentioned before of essentially posting the curriculum, not just for parental awareness, but perhaps as a method for supplying equivalent information so that the families could take that up as part of an alternative for using the materials, having it available so that they can use in any fashion, in any educational setting, at home or at home.
yeah, thank you. That's consistent with feedback I got from families who said that they do talk about this with their students at home and they want to be able to talk about the specific materials I'm sure. I appreciate that.
So the My Future, My Choice has that parent aspect too. They have the videos that the students watch and then they have the parent. But I think that is super key. It's that conversation that's happening at home for more in-depth and whatnot. And I think having those resources available and highlighted to parents is great.
All right, do you want to review the policy language?
Yeah, so the feedback that I got again from different stakeholders in the CCAC was to drive that communication plan. And so what I've covered so far is pretty much a communication plan about how to be transparent, how to advise folks of their rights and protect those rights. And now, really, the business of tonight is to move forward with a recommendation about the policy. So policy AGAI, in talking with the CCAC and in reviewing the policy, I have 3.5 suggestions to make, and they're very specific. So what I'd like to do is just lead you through them point by point and see if you agree. The first is on page, do you see page 104 or do you see page 66 when you look at it?
I only see 104.
Hard copy is 104.
Okay. So on page 104, if you go to the last full paragraph, there's an underlined and highlighted section that we recommend adding. The superintendent or designee will ensure that a parent notification process is in place. Parent notification processes access to the curriculum for review, and the process for exempting students from the specific instructional activities will be made public on the district's website. Of course, we'd have paper copies of those materials as well, but making them universally available on the website is something that we want to commit to do.
So to be clear, the change of policy that you recommend here states that you will in fact put the entire curriculum material on the website. Am I reading that correct?
I think the way that Eric described it, whatever possible, and then links to whatever is the copyrighted materials. So. We feel like the scope of that is doable because it's in such a short instructional time. That's part of the reason to bring the teachers together and ask what tools are you using, what worksheets, and let's scan those and upload them. Second, in number 4 at the bottom of that same page, there were questions and are questions about the term skills-based. And in this instance, because it immediately precedes talk about contraceptives, condoms, etc., it's confusing. Because on the one hand, it's easy and traditional in a lot of health curriculum to talk about how to put on a condom. But other forms of contraception get a little more difficult to demonstrate in practice. And it seems unreasonable, and rightly so, that we would discuss doing that in our curriculum. So in terms of ease of communication and understanding, that's an easy place I think we can take out skills-based and then just talk about balanced and accurate information on risks and benefits of contraceptives, et cetera, et cetera. So I know that caused alarm with a couple of readers who I talked to of this policy proposal in its original form. That was from OSBA's recommendation. So I recommend striking that. Now, skipping to page 3 of 4, there's a 17 and an 18, and I'd like to recommend maintaining the term skills-based in that one because skills-based is preceding numbers 1 through 6, which are all about setting limits, resisting peer pressure, media pressure, communicating your values, self-esteem, and those are things that we have skills and tools to teach students to do and to practice. And so we feel like that was a clearer and more doable skills-based instructional obligation that we could keep in the policy for clarity. Now, turning back to page 2 of 4, item 14. Another vocabulary item that's defined in the law, but was confusing when we read it. I was actually looking at a different version of the law, and I was unable to find the definition when we looked at this the first time. For bystander behaviors, it caused a little concern. What is that? What does that mean? And so the proposal is to replace the term active student bystander behavior with the following language from the OAR that clarifies the definition of the term. So what we've done is actually pluck the definition of bystander behaviors, and this is down on number 14. And instead of encourage bystander behaviors, it reads, and encourage students who witness or learn about a peer's harmful behavior or attitudes to intervene when it is safe to do so. That's the exact definition from the law of bystander behaviors. And that's something that we cover in bullying prevention, and that's a skill that we teach our students. So we hope that that recommendation provides clarity on another confusing vocabulary item from the OSBA policy updates. And I believe that's it.
Okay. I'm going to take public comment, and then we can open your questions to Travis and discussion. And the first one is Kimberly Scott. And I have 4. So Kimberly Scott, and then Camille.
You know what, Kim?
What?
I made a mistake.
You made a mistake.
There's one more additional note that we're adding, and it's a footnote. It's very small on the last page,
Okay.
page 3.
Hang on, Kimberly.
Sorry.
That's all right.
So there's a footnote there on skills-based that expands what that term means. In accordance with the law, it says per OAR 581-022-1440, skills-based is defined as, quote, instructional strategy that has students practice the desired skill, unquote. Skills-based instructional activities regarding effective communication, development of self-esteem, resisting peer pressure, and accessing valid health information are available for review. So what we wanted to do is clarify what skills-based means, that it's the adjective is modifying those teaching points, and then if you want to review what those materials are, we would have those posted along with the rest of the materials. Thanks for letting me add that.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you. So Kimberly Scott. And then on deck is Camille Hammond. Come on up, Kimberly. Start with your name and your address.
Sure.
That'd be great.
Kimberly Scott, 363 Northeast 16th Avenue, Hillsboro. So I'm really glad that I'm able to be here and see a lot of audience people here, and I'm excited that I learned a lot of this glossary of terms, and I'm glad to hear some of the things that Travis said. I'm concerned, and I know we don't have a question to answer, that this would be adopted tonight, because I still feel like there's a lot of this terminology, even though he addressed a couple words where let's take this out, let's change that, and that's really great progress. But I just wanted to, I learned that with the OARS, the Oregon Administrative Rules, the Oregon Department of Education, and the ORS. So the Oregon Revised Statutes, which you guys all know this, that's what the law is, if I'm correct. And so I feel like we need to focus on what the law is, not the necessarily the Oregon Administrative Rules. And a lot of the policy that's in review in this packet that we're updating was crafted by Brad Victor. Do you guys know who he is? Because he has been recently retired, just recently, and he crafted most of this policy that we're now kind of just adopting. And it's not necessarily the Oregon Revised Statute. And he was on the steering committee and in the on the WISE committee for the Adolescent Sexuality Conference, which sadly for Oregon, has gotten national attention from multiple sources, that it's now being looked at by the sheriff's departments all over Oregon, that criminal behavior may have occurred at that conference. Brad Victor was aware, he spoke at it, he directed it, he was on several committees. So I feel like I don't want to rush this, because how do we know that, how do we know as a board, as a community that that this terminology that he uses and these concepts that are in this policy can be trusted, or that will reflect what this community of parents and guardians and students represent. So I just feel like I'm so glad you gave it like 60 days, so it gave us some time to learn and read, and I got to communicate with lots of other parents across the district, and a lot of those parents would have been here, but they're teaching basketball, they're doing PTA, or one of their spouses is, so their other ones are home with kids, so I know there's a lot of involvement in the school district and a lot of passion for this, and a lot of interest. So I have tons more questions. I'm happy to be more involved. I've volunteered in the classroom for 20 years every week. I have a 20-year-old, but I always just went to the school. I was in the classroom. I was helping the teacher. I was helping the district. And so it's good to be part of the school board, and I appreciate all the comments and the time that's gone to taking our feelings and looking at this policy more seriously, because it is about more than just all these little administrative things we do. It is about the experience of our children, which is more than just line by line. And I think this sexuality part has a huge impact on their learning. So thank you.
Camille Hammond, and then on board is Rachel Kitchens.
Hi, I'm Camille Hammond. My address is 638 Northeast Christie Court here. I have a first grader, so I'm coming from a little bit of a different perspective as my oldest. And I'm concerned that last week she came home and it was bedtime, and she started said, I need to talk to you about something. And she said, do you know what appropriate touch is and inappropriate touch? And then went through these scenarios of, is this appropriate? Is this inappropriate? Like she was giving the lesson, and then she said, and then we saw pictures of kids with bruises, and the story of a mom who, the daughter wasn't doing anything bad, but she grabbed her arm to make her go to bed, and then she came to school, and she had all these bruises on her arm, and it, and so the teacher was able to talk to her teacher, and she was really upset by this story that she had heard. It was, I think, maybe the first time she had heard of parents being mean to their children. And it made, I talked to her and said, Mom and Dad will do this, and they need to talk about this, because unfortunately that might happen. But I really wish that I would have been forewarned that this was going to be happening. This was going to be, talked about. There's a link if you'd like to see pictures of what's going, of what's going to be shown, just so I could have that conversation with her beforehand, because she was upset about it. And I was talking to another mom who said her daughter came home and was drawing pictures of the story and the bruises and what it had affected her too. So I was glad that the communication was being addressed, but I'd like that to go even through the K through 3 to just be able to know. As I look through the standards, they're pretty broad. K through 3 is all kind of lumped in one, and you don't know, or I couldn't tell looking at the standards what was going to be taught in kindergarten, second grade to third, and so as a parent, that would be really great to have that resource. So thank you.
Thank you. Rachel, and then after Rachel is Kathy Makita.
Hi, I'm Rachel Kitchens, 2561 Southeast Hillsboro Court in Hillsboro. I have 3 children. 2 of them are in high school, and one of them is about to go into middle school next year. So I was here last month, and I've had the opportunity to attend a board meeting and also the CCAC last month. And I want to say, first of all, that I very much appreciate the work that you do, and especially the work of the CCAC. And it's a lot of time, and I understand that teachers work very hard, and the board members work very hard. And I know that you all have good intentions, and I hope that you see that we do too, as parents. So if the state represents all of the community, from one end of the spectrum to the other, then I hope that no one is excluded. And I only have specifically certain objections to the middle school curriculum material in my future, my choice. And if I cannot change the curriculum itself, then maybe I could propose that we find a different way to teach that material. And as a teacher myself, there are multiple ways to teach the same thing. Like if, when you teach a child how to convert fractions to percentages, there are different angles that you can do it, or showing a child how to, there are many examples of how to do things. So I know that my future, my choice is one way to do it. Perhaps we could look at other things there. And certainly all the suggestions that Mr. Ryman has suggested at the CCAC, I applaud many of those things. The lead time, the access to information is very important to me, because it was a lot of hard work for me to get the kinds of things that I wanted access to. Those are good things. Something that is very important to me also is I very much want to know what kind of external resources, websites, and endorsements that my school is providing to my children. So, that's all I have to say. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Kathy?
Hi, my name is Kathleen Titka. I live at 946 Southeast 54th Avenue, Hillsboro, and I am only a lowly taxpayer. I'm not a parent, but I do have a concern about children. They live in my community and so forth. So I do want to thank you for delaying your approval of this policy. I ask, like some other parents too, that give us more time, because I know how hard you work, because I've been looking at all this stuff too, and there's a lot. I've also been asked by some people who are not going to speak tonight that we ask anybody who's concerned about the human sexuality policy to please stand up, so at least you have an idea that we represent more than the people who are speaking here. There's a lot of people concerned about this. Thank you. And I'd like to, my comments are very similar to the first speaker's comments, which I find interesting. I wanted to begin by looking at this policy. In the very first sentence, I have a question about what's age appropriate. How does the district define and determine what is age appropriate? Excuse me. If you're using the state standard to determine that, that was mostly written by Brad Victor and the Oregon Department of Education, and they are not in a good way right now. I think he was the director of the adolescent sexuality conference, which is now being investigated for criminal activity. So I think that calls into question that man's judgment on everything that he worked on. So if you look at these standards, you have to consider the source. And considering his utter lack of judgment about what was appropriate at the conference, I think that anything he worked on should be scrutinized very closely, including this very policy. Because he did work on this. And I want to ask, how can the district continue to use standards or policies developed by Brad Victor and the Oregon Department of Education and assume that they're still appropriate given the action and things? I want to say, too, that I think that the experts on what is age appropriate are the parents themselves. I mean, parents know their kids, they know what they're ready for. And that brings me to my second point, probably the most important thing that I want to say, is the communication between the district and the parents has been talked about a lot. I know there's a lot of work done, and I want to propose a change to the policy that we could do better than the state law. We could actually require parents to opt in. I think that solves your communication problem. If you have to hear an affirmative for the parent before their child is sitting in a class where some of this questionable material may be taught. And I suggest that this means that if any one of the topics discussed in the state standards that come under the promotion of sexual health, if it's taught in any class, and that means if the topic comes up in like a human geography class, for example, the parents must choose to opt their child in. You cannot have a child sitting in a class where the parent didn't okay it. And as far as having all the materials online, I applaud that. And any copyrighted materials should be available, and I think all the materials should be available in each school's library so that the parents can come and look at it anytime they want to. Thank you very much for your time.
If I can get a motion, then we can move into discussion. I apologize.
Okay, our motion? Okay. I make a motion to approve revisions to policy IGAI, human sexuality, AIDS/HIV, sexuality transmitted diseases, and health education.
A second. Thank you. Questions, comments? Eric and then Adriana?
So I just wanted to thank the speakers again. I think they brought up some really important points. And I think, that adolescent sexuality conference at the Coast, even though it doesn't really apply to us because our school district couldn't send anyone there, it's an important lesson about what can happen when you give vague guidelines and then just trust people to implement them. So we do have to be very careful about that stuff. And by the way, any of you who haven't seen those news reports, I'd really encourage you to Google it. There's some pretty scary stuff that came out of that conference. So the one big improvement in this policy that I really like, and I want to thank Travis and the CCAC for all their work, I really like the addition of putting everything on the web, right? Because that, I think, is the real tool that we're going to give parents, to give all of you who came here to speak, to really look at it and review the details and come back with any details that you think don't reflect the values of the community or that are age inappropriate for children. Right, so this policy and this change of putting things on the web is really going to give all of you the tools to do that second level of scrutiny and really look closely at this and then bring to our attention anything that is of concern. So I think we're probably going to pass the policy tonight, but don't think that's the end of the conversation. The way I look at it is that's just the beginning of a much longer conversation.
All right, first I want to say that I just love my country. I love living in America, and I love having this conversation that we had. It's divergent thought, it's evolving thought. I also love our political electoral process. I believe in it wholly. I want to share, first of all, my personal experience. I'm an immigrant, child of an immigrant parents. I went to parochial school from first grade through 8th grade, then I went on to public school. I saw differences, and I'm not going to go, but I had a wonderful experience in parochial school. I am here to represent my community, my immigrant Latino Spanish-speaking community, as well as immigrant communities, whether they're from Somalia, whether they are from Russia, and I've done a lot of talking with families. I've done a lot of talking with students who have graduated from our system, who are 23 years old, 24 years old, 18, 19, who have begged me not to change this policy for our community. Many of our families come from countries where we don't talk about this. It's not the norm. My friend who could not be here tonight wanted to be here, but she has to work like many of the parents we heard were coaching basketball. Unfortunately, she doesn't have the ability to coach. She has to work at a restaurant until 11 o'clock at night tonight. She shared with me that she was a victim of incest. She also shared with me that she didn't have any information. She grew up in Mexico, and her parents didn't talk to her about this, and it was her uncle who was violating her. She got married at 15 years old, became pregnant, has a son who graduated from our school system last year, has a daughter at Liberty right now, and has another one at Pointer. And I also talked with her children regarding, but that is a separate piece. She begged me not to change this. She also asked me, do parents have a choice? That's what I want to know first, because she too is Catholic as I am. And we do have our faith intact and we have our beliefs, but we do not believe that we should apply that outside of people who don't believe what we believe. That's how we feel personally. I have a real concern with the idea of opting in, and I'm going to tell you why. And I'm sure a lot of our families here can stand up and tell you why. Because a lot of them don't have access to information. If we ask parents who are from Somalia, from Russia, to opt their kids in on the internet, then we are not giving them an opportunity if we ask them. However it is, I'm wrestling with the idea of opting in. It is tearing at me of opting in. The opting out, I'm totally for that. I'm totally for that. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Brad Victor, I don't even know who he is. Never heard of the man? Nothing. I'm a child development major. I'm working on my master's right now. And I want to share something. This is why I love my country. My country is America. I want everyone here to know that. I love it. And I did a project in college where I had no clue. And the question was, does sexuality education in our public school system promote a better democracy? And this is living proof right here, what's happening tonight, that sexuality education does promote a better democracy in our country. What we saw tonight is a representation of our democracy. As my friend said to me, this is public school. This is not Catholic private school. This is public. It should be for everybody. And she shared with me that when her daughter came home when she was at Pointer, they talked about it. They have such a close relationship. Because of the opportunity to discuss these things, she said, my daughter taught me some things that I didn't know. And we have such a strong relationship. She's now ready for her second. This is a mother who gave birth at 15 years old. There's a lot of ills that happen in our communities that we don't want to face and we don't want to talk about, but they're happening. And I can tell you firsthand from experience, they happen in my community. I understand and wholly respect the views of the families. My children can tell you, they didn't believe in the watermelon story, the watermelon seed. They knew where a child came. They witnessed births of their other siblings when they were 7 and 5 years old. But I made it very clear to my children that this was our family value. You do not go to school and talk about this because other families don't share what we do. And I just want to say that, and I want to thank you. And one of the last things that I want to say again about Brad Victor is this got me thinking about our local control. And I really like local control because I don't know who Brad Victor is. I'll Google him. But this is local control, what we're talking about here. And that's all I have to say, and I just want to end it again with, I love this country, and I love my country. And this is democracy here. Thank you.
Wayne? I'm sorry, Monty.
First of all, thank you, Travis, and the curriculum committee. I also think that we pride ourselves on inclusion of everybody. I think we've seen that people still aren't on the same page as we are. So I'm apprehensive about approving a policy that we still have a ways to go on, I think. Whether we agree with what the folks are saying or not, I think we haven't heard everybody. And I think we need to talk through those things. So I don't think we're ready to adopt a policy until we've given them the opportunity to weigh in and then either accept what they have to say or oppose what they have to say. They make a good point about this character, Brad Victor. I don't know who he is either. But if what they're saying is true, we need to do our work and research that before we approve the policy.
I want to reserve some of my comments. I shared some things last month, but I first and foremost want to hear from Mike and or Steve on their opinion as far as the work that's been done here to work on this policy for 60 days. I think it's been a tremendous amount of work. Kudos to Travis, kudos to the CCAC for their work that they've done. I think that when you talk about the representation in the room and why we should delay it, I think that you can look on print about some other representation and then also, and consider that as well. I would be curious if any of the board members had opportunities to go and look at the information on the website, the My Future, My Choice. Did you click on the videos and all those kind of things and check that out? And, I spoke to parents as well, but right now I just want to collect some of my thoughts here, but I'd like to hear from Steve or from Mike. So I'm not sure which one.
Why don't you go?
Okay, sure. First off, thank you everyone for being here. This is a very important topic, and obviously there's a lot of public comment. I can't recall a board meeting where we had so many folks, over several meetings coming to talk to us about this. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to express all your concerns. But I also want to say that I really appreciate the direction that Travis took in that he made a comment the other day about separating the policy from the curriculum. The policy changes that we're considering here, we already have a policy for this sex ed, health, education, whatnot. It's a lot bigger than just this curriculum. I like that we're completely reviewing this and opening up the public comment for the CACC and whatnot to actually look at the curriculum. But I think that the changes that we're making to the policy, if we adopt them, is just really to align them in kind of a general way. Because, the policy is kind of the overarching strategy, and the implementation that comes down to the nuts and bolts work that we do after that. To be honest, there are a lot of good things in this policy that I see. For instance, just from my own personal value set, it stresses abstinence as being the only 100% possible way to avoid pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases. But at the same time, it recognizes that not everyone is on quite that same page, and that it does say, yes, and we're going to also talk about the other things that I may or may not be super comfortable as a parent. But it also stresses that we do have a communication plan, and that's where I like the clarifications. Just right in here, we're going to have a plan in place for parents to actually see this stuff. And so that's very important, because I agree with what Eric said. You guys need to keep us honest, and you need to make sure that if there's something going on that you don't like, you need to keep telling us about it, and so that we can make changes to the specific thing. But that doesn't mean the policy's bad. I think the direction the policy is going actually is pretty good. Do we have more work to do in the curriculum? Maybe. That's what we want to hear from the CACC. That's where where I liked how, they did a very exhaustive review, actually more than they do for a lot of our policies. So I just appreciate the work that they all did on that. I think that everyone did an honest job on that. It's an area where we're all still growing and working, but to be honest, I do support the policy changes, just for the reasons that I said. So, but again, thank you so much for coming here and telling us, about it. So I appreciate all that. I want to be sensitive to that as well, but we do represent the whole community. So,
So I'm going to grab Wayne and Monty and myself, and then we'll get Mike.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Basically, I don't want to repeat everything that was said. I agree with a lot of the principles. I wanted to actually direct specific questions that can be answered at the time that they talk about whoever's going to address it, Travis or Steve, about your belief or understanding of the mapping of the Oregon law to how it's represented in the policy. If you believe that it's your own translation of law to policy, or if it relies on other authors to have interpreted it, and have we looked at that interpretation?
So typically the way we go about the policies is that there's specific language in the OAR or even in the statute that says these are things that districts must do. And the policy is almost word for word a reflection of that statute or that administrative rule. And OSBA does a pretty good job of, as their attorneys go through and they identify where we must be in compliance. And then it's up to the school district to propose things that speak to the values of the organization. And they typically go in the direction of more information or restriction rather than, because you can't go backwards. Does that make sense? You can't say, if the law is that you teach the standards, you can't write in policy and have it be legal, that we're only going to do half of it. Does that make sense? So the changes that Travis suggested to you were actually places where we legally can adjust the language, but that will create less confusion or frustration. That skills-based was a perfect example of it. It was an unnecessary placement of that term. It was recommended to us, but we have the ability to take it out because it wasn't in the statute. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I think you're saying that your understanding of the state law is reflected directly in the, and that's something that you've reviewed in light of this whole discussion and believe that we're in line with the law as stated, not the interpretation of it.
I think the thing that we're realizing is that the policy really isn't what's at issue necessarily. It's kind of restating what's required of school districts. What's at issue is a disagreement about whether or not we should be teaching certain standards within the set that, I don't know what you, 63 pages of standards. So that's a great discussion to have. It's just not one that we necessarily have a whole lot of power to have as a school district in this forum. Right?
I just want to respond to what Glenn had to say, because right in the policy it says, and align it with Oregon Health Education Standards and benchmarks, which I think we heard from a lot of folks that they don't have a whole lot of confidence in those standards and benchmarks.
And I think that's the issue there, right? That when those standards and benchmarks get voted on by the state board, there is an opportunity for feedback. Now, that's not something that people typically know about, and it's not blasted that we're going to talk about sex education down in Salem. But that is where you have the public testimony about this shouldn't be here. It should say this instead. Please consider changes. For local school boards, it's a little bit more complicated, much like the conversation we had over Common Core.
I just wanted to sort of echo the piece around communication. As a high school parent, I think that's the key, because someone said tonight, parents know their kids. And I would say, I heard from a lot of parents and kids who echoed sort of what Adriana heard. And I like the idea that if it doesn't fit for a parent or their kid, knowing their kid, that there's an option to not. But there are a lot of people who wanted, and I wouldn't want to walk away from the state standard that does that. So in my personal experience, both of my children participated, and it worked for my kids. I think the prompts are really helpful because parents do have conversations with their kids during those topics. I use the syllabi to talk about world studies and a lot of topics. And so I think anytime you can provide those prompts, so when your student can tell me, okay, I need a prompt, right? So I started doing that in preschool. I need those prompts to walk me through those conversations instead of something deeper than the syllabi that sharing this material. So what do you think about X, Y, Z? I think are helpful, but I think the way to help all families know their kids is that be very clear and transparent and over-communicate and let families choose what's best for their family. Micah. And I'll do Micah, then I'll grab more questions about that one.
First of all, I do appreciate everyone being here this evening. It's obviously a topic in the community that we need to talk about. I would say, though, that I am proud of the response that the district has taken on this. I feel like we've done our due diligence on this. This is not Travis sitting around making up a response to this. That is not how this works. Travis and Steve and I have had countless conversations about this. There's been huge involvement through the CCAC, which is a representation of our community. I don't know who this Brad guy is, but I also don't buy that one person writes standards in our state and they're just adopted. That there is a review process, there's a bidding process. One person doesn't write standards and everyone jumps on board with that. I would say that I think the discussion is more over the standards, and I feel good about our response in that The CCAC, they've said we need better communication, we need detailed information regarding the topics that are covered. We need more clarity on the opt-out. And those are all things that we can and are prepared to do and to improve our response to that. I feel like this process has been very transparent. I feel like we've received the community input through the CCAC as well as the parents that are here this evening. And we do have those various views that have been debated. I don't know what delaying this would do for us. I don't understand what we would analyze further when it comes to this particular policy, because we're committing to what CCAC has recommended. We're committing to those recommendations and the greater transparency, the greater communication. Give parents an opportunity to pull their kid out if that's what they're after. We're committing to all. There's no argument there whatsoever. I don't know how we would adjust the policy and what good waiting another 30 days would do.
Last round of questions. Here we go. I just have a question. I don't know if we talked about opting out and what that's going to look like for the family that does choose, and I just want to emphasize the transparency, for the parents to be able to click on and see the materials that we're using in the curriculum to make a choice, because they might want their child to attend one day, and I like that flexibility. And then also, I would consider, open to a policy if any parent is able, I don't know how to cover with advanced time, if they're able to attend, class with their child to learn. I don't know. So I wanted to know a little bit more about the opting out for those students and what that, or could it look like.
Right now, it's protected by laws is a parent's right to make a written request to exempt a student from any instructional activity. So that's anything. That's a book, that's health curriculum. And that's based on what's written in the OAR is based on the students' and families' religious beliefs and disabilities. But we're going a step further in listening to our community and saying, no matter what your cultural background and values or politics, we talked about this in the CCAC, we want to honor that right, whatever the basis for it is. And so what we would do is invite a written proposal to exempt the student, and then a proposal for what the replacement activity would be. Hopefully something educational related to the same standards for language arts if it's a book, or for health if it's health. And it's the right of the district to honor that exemption in the law. So the proposal for the exemption comes from the parent in a written form.
Follow up to that, specifically, is that the onus on the parent to suggest a legitimate alternative to be rejected, or does the school come with alternative proposals available?
So it's not our intention to reject those requests. It's not our job to judge the basis of that family's values and culture and beliefs. I think we want to honor that, and I think it's our obligation to negotiate what that is and provide it. I think the instances, we've even heard from some concerned community members about replacement activities, and right now our current practice is to make those available to the parent and take the parent's feedback on what they think those ought to be. So I don't think I would support a rejection of the request. I would ask that we provide materials that are educational to the student, and I hope that's a negotiation between the parent and the school.
Glenn?
Yeah, that's what you just said was kind of an interesting point that I hadn't considered before, but I think food for thought for the future. I would love to see us go down a path where we had kind of a recognized alternative, So, I think the vast majority of kids are going to go in the mainstream class, but it's pretty clear, there's mainly two divisions here. One that supports everything that we are putting in the curriculum, and then there's a much more restricted set of information. I think that the market for that, shall we say, is more than one person or family would be interested in that. So if we had kind of a toned down version of the curriculum that was sort of put together, that we could present for these kids, for their families, that could also be put on the web, so they can say, well, okay, maybe we could do that instead for them. So at least that way we're doing our due diligence, because I think it's very important that we do talk about a lot of these topics, but not every subject is appropriate for every kid, for every family. So I like having options for them, but I also recognize that that's kind of a fraught with a whole lot of things, because there's a whole range of things that people want. But I'd love to see at least a few options that we've thought about and had them ready to go.
So I can't address that. My background based on objections to the content of the adopted supplemental materials. And I like your proposal, Glenn, the option, like a set of options. I used to have sort of a collection of here's some other materials that meet the same standards in my pocket as a teacher, so that if a parent or student would prefer to read something different, I had some options. But what I found was that for me to decide that the secondary and tamer option was kind of just as insulting, because I'm assuming what that toned down version might look like for a family I haven't met yet. And so while I like the idea of it, it is hard in practice to come up with the main option and then a secondary one, because I would assume that some families and students rejected the secondary option as much as the first one for reasons I might not know yet. So I get it, but I think we need to be really sensitive in listening to families and not coming up with a solution that solution A and solution B is, in my mind, not as solid as a dialogue with the family and really coming up with something that meets their particular values and beliefs. So I like that way of thinking, but we'll have to work out how that goes, what support we provide for teachers.
Just one last follow-up then. Who does that dialogue? Is it the teacher or is it the district? Because I mean, otherwise you have like inconsistent answer between different classes.
The principal is the point person for receiving the request for exemption from instructional activities and the proposal for replacement activities. You're welcome.
My final thoughts on this is like, I appreciate what Glenn was saying about, I think what we're doing here is we're blurring these lines. We're blurring the lines between policy and curriculum. We're blurring the lines between what happened at a conference that we didn't have anything to do with to what actually happens in the Hillsboro School District. I think that if we wanted to hear more voices, we could have heard more voices from teachers. I would have been really curious. I wouldn't put anybody on the spot, but I know we have health teachers, and I know we have students in the audience, and I know that, did you have any dialogue with health instructors about this particular policy? I think that what we need to think about and what we need to understand is that what we do in school is provide students with information for a tool belt. And they have factual information, they have standard-based learning, and then our job is that it's a partnership. It's student, it's families, it's staff. And when the parent who spoke tonight, I think the gal that spoke with the glasses who spoke last month, I think you coined it perfectly when you said that your student came home and you had a 1-hour conversation about this and really went into depth. I think that is actually what is perfect and what is needed, is that we can't, as educators I can't say we, I'm not an educator, but educators, teachers in the district, it's not the last word with them. They provide the factual information, they provide a curriculum, and then they go home and you talk about it. Just as parents are doing with all other subjects, with math, with social studies, with spelling, with all other things. This is a subject that they have further opportunities for dialogue in. And I sincerely appreciate the conversations and the concerns. And I really appreciate the work that was done. CCAC, fantastic involvement. If we talked about over and over again, just from this table, why can't they be more involved? Why can't they have more of a voice? We've provided an extremely loud voice here, and now all of a sudden it's not exactly being heard, and it's not exactly being seen. And I think that kind of contradicts some of the conversation that's happened at this table. So I think that we need to really be thoughtful of that, as Glenn pointed out. Let's think about policy. Let's think about curriculum. Again, I appreciate this conversation. I appreciate the work that was done. A lot of staff time was done on this, and I'm just ready to move forward.
And maybe back to your point around state standards, State Board of Education, I'll link to that with our web materials, so that would be a place where maybe you could put alerts if there is topics coming out at a state level that where those conversations were had. There's one more resource that's easier for parents to find. So with that, I'm looking at the clock and looking at the high school students who are still going to present to us tonight. Thank you for being so patient. The motion on the table is to approve the revisions to policy IGAI. The motion was made by Adriana Janine. Going to ask all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Do you have that one? So the vote would be 6-9. Thank you, motion carries. And next on the list, we only have two more students, is policy LBE public charter schools with Steve.
Right, remember this was the easy one. They moved this from Division 20 to, I had it?
26. 26.
To 26. Thanks, Marty. So it's a very insignificant change. It was just a movement from one place in the law to another place in the law. We wanted to run it by you in the interest of full disclosure that the only thing that changed is the legal reference at the end.
I make a motion to approve the recommended revisions to policy LBE public charter schools.
I second. Any questions or comments on this one? It's been moved by Janine and seconded by Adriana to approve the revisions to policy LBE. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Only all policies were just the moving of a division. And next is the new action item to approve the purchase of wireless network components. Don, can you walk us through this one?
Yes, I can, and thank you for the late addition. I apologize for that. We've talked about this process for so much. As we know, this is part of the board providing technology services, a one-time $500,000 budget line item for improving infrastructure, and that has all been about wireless, improving the wireless infrastructure and targeted at our high schools. So on October 28th, we approved the RFP to do the installation work, the wiring repurpose, and we've talked about this process. And because the equipment wasn't part of that RFP, and because we can purchase that off of state-approved contracts, it didn't occur to me at that time to also approve the purchase of the actual hardware. We have a board policy. I want to make sure that we're following board policy all the way through, that anything over $150,000 needs to be approved by the board. So we did go out and put out an RFQ, worked with NIS, Network Information Services, who's helping us through this process. Got 3 quotes back. The 3 quotes range in price from, as you saw, from $431,000 and some change to $373,000 and some change, which is considerable savings all the way along from when we first designed this out. We got a rough estimate of the price cost. It was about $515,000. So the RFQ saved us a good chunk of money, but we also need approval to move forward to make this purchase. So I'm here seeking your approval to accept and award the purchase, or purchase through the lowest bid, because it's all the same equipment. There's not any scoring that needs to happen. It's just the lowest dollar figure gets our business on this one.
So can the motion just state we're going to award the bid to the lowest bidder and not specify who and that dollar amount? Will that work?
Who's the vendor?
The vendor is Presidio. I'm sorry, I didn't include that in the
I just
SIP
don't have
page.
access to, I'm not getting online, so.
Okay.
Does any board member have it on front of them that would include exactly the motion? It's added in a separate folder.
Unfortunately, I had to get to the packet through the packet.
I'm going to go with close there. How's that sound? Here you go.
Move that we approve the purchase of wireless network components to the lowest bidder for Presidio dollar amount, $370,017.15.
I will second that.
Any follow-up questions for Don on this one? So it's been moved. Yeah.
So, to be clear, we talked about kind of the budget time, allotting money for all this, and then the last time. Are these allotments of the original budget money?
Of the original $500,000? Yes, the one-time dollars. So where we thought we were going to be, I'm sorry if I'm going to answer this further and I shouldn't, but where we thought we were going to be way over and might have to pare back on some of what we did, some of the common areas, theaters, gymnasiums, because of the RFQs came in at such good pricing, we won't have to do that. We will get we're not going fence to fence, but we have full building coverage in all four of our comprehensive high schools.
This is when high school students say yes. All right, so the motion's been made by Wade and seconded by Glenn to approve the purchase of the wireless network components. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Do you want this piece of paper?
Yeah, I've got a folder.
And with that, we get into reports and discussion, and what is hopefully the best part of the evening, talking to students. And so, Ms. Nova, would you like to kick off with College of Career Pathways, or how would you like to do? Sorry, Travis? See, Travis, I was trying to make you come in and share, but...
No, this one's fun. So tonight's update on the College and Career Pathways project is a part 2 in a 6-part series where we highlight the different career learning areas that we've organized some of the work around, both dual credit opportunities and internship opportunities. Last 2 board meetings ago in October, you heard from the Industrial and Engineering Systems career learning area and folks from Century High School. And tonight I want to introduce Brooke Nova to talk about the Agriculture, Foods, and Natural Resources career learning area and a program from Hillsboro High School students and the teacher.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to say thank you to those who attended the College of Career Pathways Steering Committee meeting, and thank you to those who are interested in joining a career learning advisory meeting. I continue to invite you to those. I have to say I didn't know what the first run would look like, and they were amazing. The synergy, the collaboration amongst our community, our teachers, our students, our counselors was inspiring, and I'm excited to move forward into round 2 meetings. So thank you for that, and thank you for your commitment to attending the steering committee meetings and the support of this work. So thank you. I want to start, tonight was a good reflection from our outdoor school students to something that Kim said about students are our best natural resources, to the community who showed up tonight, which is our city motto, which is growing great things. I thought you might join me on that one, but that's okay. Growing great things is our city motto in Hillsboro, and I think what a great reflection and a recap of what has gone on tonight, and also ties so well into agriculture, food, and natural resource systems. Right. So, I need a clicker.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Hold on. I'm kind of short, but I run fast. Okay. Here we go. Growing great things. Okay. So with agriculture, food, and natural resources, I think what's really important is to highlight within that career cluster some of the career opportunities and strands, as well as noting, I looked at an article that's from CTE that said that plant systems offer the most job openings, and animal systems are the fastest growing within this career strand. So within animal systems, like a vet tech is a fast-growing career opportunity within this career cluster. Also, I think it's important every time that we share this information to note the where we are in terms of high growth, high demand jobs. So there are 4.6 million jobs in this career cluster, which was calculated in 2010. Projected by 2020 is an increase in jobs, 250,000 new jobs in the United States, which is a 5% increase. Culinary arts is a business and management focus, but I wanted to note that there is that farm-to-table aspect within culinary arts. So I wanted to note that the CTE recognized program, though, is Corey Dundas's program that she's going to share about tonight that is at Hillsboro High School. So what I love is Corey is a member of our CLA. Any of you are welcome to join. It will be in her classroom, which I think will be really fun because we'll also be able to see the greenhouse aspect, which is next Monday at 4 p.m. So open opportunity to join that career learning advisory team. But it's been great to be able to connect our community, our nonprofit organizations to our CTE recognized teacher, to be able to have that discussion of projects. My whole heart is into connecting classroom to community. So to have that collaboration and dialogue has been wonderful, and to learn more about her program as well. So within our dual credit, within horticulture, you'll see that It's a PCC articulated program where students are able to earn credit by taking her courses. I'm trying to speak fast because I know need time, so here we go. What I really want to get to, which is always the highlight, right, is hearing from our students, hearing from our teachers about their experiences, and that's what it's really about, I think, every time we present, is really what's going on with our youth and our teachers. So, tonight to have a start, Shirley, who is our intern, however, she may get an internship with Suzanne Bonamici. She's one step to doing that, but she's committed to still interning a bit with me, thank goodness. But part of her internship is to create these videos that are then posted to YouTube that we share every time that we're together. So I'm going to have Shirley intro this video since it is her work. Come on up, Shirley.
So I'll try to make this quick as well because I have homework. So yeah, this is a video. It features two Hillsboro School District products. One who is going to graduate this year and an alumni. So yeah, it's just going to be talking about their experiences and a lot of what they learned. It's amazing how much just a summer could really have an impact on a career pathway, whether it be in agriculture, a future career in agriculture, food and natural resources, or something that relates to it, just because I put a lot of emphasis on a lot of these, no matter how you put it, they're going to overlap in some way, shape, or form, which is an amazing thing about just job growth and everything. So yeah, without further ado, you guys can play the video. I put music in it to jazz things up this time, so look forward to that.
Here we go.
So I'm technically with the Parks and Rec department. However, I'm working with the community gardens in Hillsboro, helping out, doing all the odd jobs with the community gardens that have Peterson, the community garden program coordinator, cannot get to. And I was working at lovely Jackson Bottom with all these amazing people under Lori Prince. Amazing. I feel so lucky, like unbelievably lucky to have gotten this experience because it is right up my alley. And I mean, a lot of first jobs for teenagers do not get that experience at all. I mean, I wasn't expecting my first job to be in the area that I want to pursue in life. I mean, that is, for me, that is beyond amazing for me to have that experience and to be able to gain this knowledge that most people don't have access to until later in life after college. I mean, that was just phenomenal. Community garden program coordinator. And I manage our community garden program responsibility to set policy, actually get people in their plots, let people in, manage the waitress. Christy said she had married lady interested in composting, so she sent her our way because that's a big deal.
to work in a kitchen where everything's fast-paced and learn how to manage time and be more responsible with things that need to be required. How nutrition works here, how to be fair with everybody, how to work well with older people, and just keep everyone in line.
Hola, mi nombre es Raquel Lemus, soy la maestra de la escuela Luis.
Hi. So yeah, that was basically my summer right there. I guess what I want to bring up is basically just how it's prepared me now and reflecting upon that experience and just how that has influenced me and my life right now and my future plans. I mean, it's a huge time for me as a senior. I'm applying for colleges. This is something I really got to think about is my future and what I plan to do. And so I'm really excited that you guys are talking about implementing like horticulture classes and courses like that, and especially making them integrate with PCC. That is absolutely amazing. I wish it happened earlier so I could have done it on it. But that's definitely right up my alley. So yay, go you. But so yeah, this internship experience was perfect. It prepared me a lot. I think it's really important for students to be able to get these experiences and have the resources to connect with these rare opportunities. I think that we should do everything in our power to make these more available and to make sure that we tailor them, especially to the students' needs, because if they're not interested in the subject, it's not going to be a good experience for anyone. But I'm really happy with how mine turned out. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to all of us, and yes, just thank you.
How awkward was that video? Yeah, well, my name is Omar Yucan, and I'm part of the Future Connect Scholarship Program at PCC. This is my second year in college, and unfortunately I'm not in high school anymore. I have more responsibilities now. But this internship was really great for me because I figured out what I wanted to do in life and what I didn't want to do. I was in the kitchen. I was a kitchen aide, which was awesome. I've always loved cooking, but it's not what I wanted to do. And I realized that my favorite part of this internship was the communication with everyone around the senior center, and not only the seniors, but all of the Hillsboro community. And because of this, I actually got hired on as a staff member now, and I work at the senior center now, which is great. And I really wish that being in high school, I would have had something to do with this. And it's great seeing all these parents come here and be involved and actually care about the future of their children, because I know that a lot of Hispanic parents, they get letters in the mail, but they don't read it because either they can't or they don't have the time to. And seeing that there are parents in here that care about their children's future, an internship is a really great way to figure out what your kids really want, what they really hate, and it's really great that you're here, and so that you can also learn how to do it. And that's it. Thank you.
Omar, like Art is a Hill High alum, so I just want to share that as well, that he is a Future Connect, but as a past Spartan. So Corey is going to share a little bit about her class, the programs that she and the projects that she's working on, as she brought samples tonight to share, and then the students will follow, and then we'll open up to questions and comments.
I unfortunately did not graduate from Hillsboro. I graduated down the street a little bit from Sherwood. I'm Corey Dundas. I'm the Hillsboro Agricultural Science and Technology teacher. So I teach all of the agricultural classes at Hill High, and I'm also the FFA advisor for the Hillsboro chapter that is open to all 4 high schools and all of the elementary schools and middle schools as well. We're going to have a newest member tomorrow, hopefully from Aloha. So we do have a meeting tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Stephanie is the FFA president. She's here to talk about some of our classes, as long as Michaela as well. So she'll talk a little bit more about FFA. But I'm not that exciting, so I'll turn it over to my kids that are more exciting than I am. So thank you.
As Ms. Dundas said, I'm Stephanie. I'm the Hillsboro FFA chapter president. I've been the chapter president for the past 2 years now. And in horticulture this year, what we did at the beginning was propagate leaves and stems, and we have samples that are actually the students' projects separating and dividing annuals that were donated by a family last year. We're going to soak them in water over winter break and plant them after winter break, and then sell them in our annual plant sale, which is in May, the Mother's Day weekend. And we are also working on fixing up our greenhouse, putting in new benches and a new watering system. It's a lot of fun.
Hello, I'm Michaela, another one of Ms. Dundas' students, and I'm currently in horticulture 2, which has taken me 4 years to get here. So it's a lot of work, but it's all worth it. In the beginning, we start from scratch. We don't know anything about landscaping, that's what you learn in this class. So you're applying all of that propagation and what you learned, the basics about plants, and you're applying it to your plants. So hardy plants in a harsh environment, that kind of thing. And so we start with notes about different landscapes, what works best for different environments. For example, a desert landscape would work better in an arid climate. And then we move to actual planning, which is the funnest part, where you get to apply all those little symbols, and it's like kindergarten again, where you get to draw pictures. And you put that all together, although it has to look a little better than kindergarten work. And we go out, we look at the plot. For example, our first project was landscaping a plot near our kindergarten preschool area, where the children will be directly interacting with this space, so we had to keep that in mind. And then our next project was working on a rain gardens for the beautification of our campus with the lovely donation of plant materials from the Clean Water Services. We're very thankful for that. And our final will be working on a thank you garden. There'll be plants, it'll be like vegetables and flowers that our janitorial staff will be able to reap the benefits of, along with other staff members.
So if you guys have any questions or comments, we'll take that at this time from either our students who participate in summer internships or for our classroom teacher or the students that are in the class. Janine?
I just want to say thank you so much for being here tonight. I know it's late and I know you have homework. So, but it's just, this is really good opportunities, and it's exciting to see, to not only hear like, this is something that I want to do in my future, this is like a dream and I can't believe I'm doing it now, to, I thought I wanted to do this, but now I didn't, but now I see this and it's led me to my career. Those are huge success stories, you know, for this program. So to be able to give these students and build on this and to give them college credit, you know, for the future going out for students is just amazing. So, and I really urge folks, if you haven't had the opportunity to go see the greenhouse, to do so, because it is super impressive, and the sale is amazing too around Mother's Day. And
don't come right now; it's really nice.
Yeah. And it's like, that is your biggest fundraiser for your program. So, but just kudos. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
I just want to share something really quick. First of all, I love this program, number one, because a lot of our Latino Hispanic parents, this is what they do for a living. And I think growing up, a lot of the kids look down and frown upon the work that their parents do. I'm just speaking generally speaking as a whole, because it's not looked at, you know, especially if you're going to school with kids and parents who work in high tech versus. So this to me just gives so much, thank you, honor and validity to the importance of this work that the parents do, of the kids that we serve in our district. The other thing is, what I love is over it's nurseries, right? And the Spanish word for nursery is actually a vivero, which means life, to vida, but everybody calls it a nurseria. And I love it because they anglicize the words because they own them, because it's their work and they do that. So I just thought that was cool to share there. I'm all over this program. I'm all over the fact that you had the experience to go and be a kitchen aide, you know, and to experience that. And out of that, you know, pop this amazing career working with, you know,
in the senior center, which I will tell you, if you continue a career in geriatrics, you will never be without older. So, I mean, it is amazing to really see, you know, the intergenerational and to be able to see that. So I'm so excited about this community. What is it, the school year motto that you always say? I'm moving during
classroom to community.
Classroom to community. I love that. And this is what this is all about. And thank you for all your work.
So I would just add, I like the one highlight, like where Erin was there to do science, but worked on the website. I love how many of your partners, whether they're city or business, are thinking about jobs that you wouldn't necessarily think about. So Bag and Baggage is brought in writers this time and journalists to think about writing reviews and bringing photographers to help them do press releases. And so I just love that sort of small business component that it's not just one thing. I think Bag and Baggage, I think actors and technicians, and Scott's being really thoughtful about how are we bringing in kids and showing them that small businesses are employers that can provide these opportunities. And last month I talked about this year's senior class and how they've been shortchanged a lot in their careers from being kindergartners to 12th graders with us due to budgetary constraints. Having known these two girls since they were in first and second grade, there's a lot we do right? So I said that last month, and I just want to say that again. I'm so proud of you. I feel like a proud mama right now. Just knowing your passions and seeing that we are providing an opportunity that's bigger than the classroom, it just makes my heart happy.
I should also say just from, and to our staff member here, leading this work, absolutely amazing opportunities that you're providing for our students. I really appreciate that. And for those in the audience that don't know, multi-talented, she also teaches the welding class.
And she looks like a student. You were just letting it all in here.
You want us to talk about you some more?
Oh, you got to be very proud of that.
Anyway, thank you for all that you do for us.
Thank you. Can I get just a quick picture of you guys before you rush?
I also want to just preview January Human Resources. We're going to have a child service program present. So just a teaser for January coming on up. So anyway, thank you guys so much again for your support. Thank you for your time.
Hurry, hurry, gotta get much homework.
I'm the oldest, I can feel that. To reap the benefits of the old people.
All right. A little closer. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Hold on. You scared my camera. 1, 2. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for being patient and waiting.
Yeah.
Your turn this evening.
Yes, so those are dropping. Kind of, you have to cut the veins. Okay. So you have to, maybe you cut it, like I have kids cut like parts off, and you just have to place the vein in the soil. And it takes a long time for it to propagate.
She's covered all our CT.
It works. It works over time.
All right.
Thank you.
So next up is the Division 22 assurances.
Okay, so remember each year we had about a 3-year reprieve from this. Last year it came back the requirement for districts to assure that they're in compliance with all of the Oregon administrative rules as they pertain to public school. The reason why that's important is those assurances communicate to the state that we are a standard school district in good standing. Failure to comply with any of those administrative rules would result in us not being considered a standard school district and could actually impact funding, but also college entrance for kids. It's kind of like an accreditation, if you will. So it's important that we are that we can assure that we are following each of those administrative rules. It was touch and go today. If we hadn't approved that policy, we would not have been in compliance. So I am happy to report to you and to the community that we are in compliance with all of the Oregon administrative rules, 56 of them, and assure to you and to the community that for another year we'll be in compliance. I do want to let you know that there's no action that needs to take place, just a public acknowledgement. I do want to let you know that they are changing process for next year to reduce work. What they're going to do is identify 5 that will report on in a more specific way, answering questions about those 5 to demonstrate our compliance with those. This year we will have to do that as well. I don't have to report that to the community or to the board, but I did want to let you know which ones those were. I was going to close the sheet. I will let you know in a weekly update, but basically it's instructional hours, equal educational opportunity. Let's see if I can pull this up. Non-discrimination. I'll send them to you another day. We are also in compliance with each of those, but I will by February 15th need to fill a form out and send it to the Department of Education.
Anyone have questions on this? Awesome. I know it is late. I know we still have a few items. I think we can do them quickly. So I'm just going to try to, some of them have deadlines to them, so we're going to try to keep moving along. So Ms. Beth, the 2014 annual report.
Yes, the annual report. This is an item that you all have in policy. It's actually a state law that we provide annual report information home to families by January 15th, and that really refers to the school and district report cards that are published each year in October. We have all of those posted on our website right now in English and Spanish, as well as the district level report card. And now for the second year in a row, I've gone ahead and compiled all the data points, all the main data points from each of those reports onto a single spreadsheet. Obviously, it's extremely dense, but it is there, and you can zoom in to see different things. And the area I was going to just quickly bring your attention to is down here at the bottom, where we have some metadata, which kind of takes all the color coding into account and says, where are we outperforming other districts, other schools that are similar to us? And you can see the data there. And just I actually, while we were in the course of this meeting, kind of also compiled some other metadata that compares the 12-13 results to 13-14. And I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and put that in this report, because I think that would be helpful to see how many more level 3s and level 4s do we have this year than last year. It's just kind of a useful thing to see. So I'm going to go ahead and include that, but this will be an action item for you guys. Just wanted to let you know that. And it's all on the website for you to take a look at.
Any questions? And then if they have any feedback between now and when we take action, they can direct that to you. Great, thank you so much. Thank you for making that quick, I appreciate it. Next is the strategic plan performance update.
I'll make mine quick as well. As you know, in August, we agreed on the focus areas for the strategic plan. We agreed that we would give you periodic updates and they would be brief. This will be the briefest yet. It's on the website, so check out the highlighted area for each strategic plan area. If you want further detail, click on it and you'll get more than you ever wanted. So be happy to answer any questions, but you can also look at it at your leisure.
I love that it's just live in there and that community members can go through it, right? We're not going to be able to talk about all of it in a meeting setting, and nor would anyone sit and watch the TV video of that for that long. But I love that parents can find the piece that's important to them, that intrigues them the most, and can dig into it.
The computer driver, go back to the link, how they got it.
Go back to the main website.
Yes, how you get there. It's just, hold on, sorry. It's under
strategic plan?
About HSD.
Right
Future of HSD strategic plan 1116, and you just click on any of these headers and it'll take you there.
Any questions or comments on this?
I think that should maybe be in an update, like in the hot news, to really show people,
Just remind them where they can go.
Just remind them where they can go.
That's a great idea.
Put a link on there.
Andrew?
Thank you very much. And next is an update on the early kindergarten entrance. Which one would you would like it?
Okay, so requests came in to check in on policy JEBA and the impact of the changes that we made. I believe it was 2 years ago that we made this change, 12-13. So remember this policy was governing how we admit early entry into either kindergarten or first grade for students who are born or who turn 5 or 6 after September 1st. The window used to extend into October. Our request was that we move it to the end of September 30th. We also made it less of a complicated process to be evaluated for eligibility. And so one of the concerns in reducing the window was that would we see applicants? And so I prepared some data I wanted to show you. The other goal in changing the way that we identify students who are ready was to increase the representation of all students in the early entry process. So remember, we removed the IQ test. We also reduced the cost to $75. So I am happy to see that the number of inquiries has actually gone up for early entry to kindergarten and first grade. So the kindergarten inquiries, 23 this year, last year 18, and previous year 13, previous to that 11. So we've nearly doubled the inquiries that we've had. So the shortening of the timeline hasn't reduced the amount of inquiries. Now, the amount of students that are ending up getting granted into early entry, that's actually gone down, strangely enough. We've made it easier, but it has gone down. What's good is that they're equally distributed between students who speak English at home and students who do not speak English at home. So we've increased the number of students that minority, language minority, or high poverty that are showing up in our process. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
So do you have data on number of people that fell outside of the modified window and requested dispensation?
Yeah, I can get that for you. I can tell you that we have not denied any request that has come to me outside of the window for an evaluation. So
you haven't denied the evaluation process to anybody who requested it.
That's right. Anybody who has an October birthday and given a compelling reason for us to evaluate, we've approved it. So there's not been one time when I did not.
I just want to address that because that was one of our, little pieces last year. And I'm really just so proud of you guys just hearing that you have not turned anything away. That was one we were really stuck on. I don't know if you remember that last year. So thank you.
That certainly was the critical element toward selecting a date, and whether the date was critical to worry over or whether reasonable actions would be taken seriously.
And we have had people who have called in and inquired and then changed their mind, never showed up, and we keep that data as well. But it's been a good change for us as a school district.
Thank you. Next, Adam, and financial report.
So I don't have anything in particular to point out in the financial report other than the fact that because of the short timeline we had between meetings, the actual numbers pages for November are going to look a little skewed. We didn't have a full month of November to report to you because of this short time frame. So don't be concerned, don't be alarmed. You'll see those November numbers change pretty significantly when we deliver the December report in January.
Any questions for Adam or comments? Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Action to take you at the next one.
Yep.
First reading of policy DJC bidding requirements.
DJC is our purchasing requirements policy, and Senate Bill 254, which was passed in the last legislative session, required us to make some changes regarding alternative procurement methods. So the language you see in there brings us in compliance with those changes due to Senate Bill 254.
Any questions from the get-go? Yeah, Monty.
The reference to ORS 279B right at the end, have you looked at their cost analysis analysis and feasibility process yet? What they're requiring?
Not recently. I know it's changed, and that it's now required for, they've lowered the threshold on when it's required, but I haven't done one recently.
Is it any good?
It's more work, but I think that was the intent. I mean, they want you to go through this process if you want to use one.
Meaningful information?
Well, that's debatable.
Good question.
This-
That's right.
This would be on 30-day review?
30-day review will be back on for
Back in January.
approval in
All right, so we have your time now then. Ivan Sugar Eye. And next we move to reports. ESB, do you have anything for us this evening? No? Thank you again for outdoor school.
Yes, thank you.
Then we'll go HCU and then AGA.
So, hello again. I'm actually coming to talk to you about an opportunity I had about last week to go down to Eugene and stand in solidarity with my fellow union members, the Graduate Teaching Fellows Federation, GTFF, which are teaching fellows and associates down at the University of Oregon, UW. They are currently on strike, if you did not know or if you saw the news. And what's interesting is that they're striking over 2 weeks of paid sick leave. That's really kind of the hot button issue. But if you really look at it of why they went on strike, it really came down to principles. The administration has different principles than the employees. The administration doesn't really feel that they're actually employees, even though they get paid and they do work and they teach. They see them kind of as students, and they don't really think they deserve a living wage, or they deserve sick leave, or they deserve the benefits of actual employment. And you can see this in the way that they actually bargain with them. They sent a lawyer to bargain with them instead of actually sending an administrator, which was, when I heard that, I'm like, that's just crazy. It's impossible to connect and have that meaningful bargaining relationship when you're talking to a lawyer, because they're not in the schools. They're not part of our community. And some other things that did that. And what's interesting is I really went down there not just to stand in solidarity with them, but to learn from them and learn, what is it that makes people strike? What is it that pushes them to that thing? And I think it's really important that for us here in Hillsboro to avoid strikes is to really make sure that we kind of talk about our principles and we kind of line up on our core values. The union stands for equity, for fairness, for due process, for respect of the work, and the willingness to collaborate. The students down there were willing to be at the table every single day to try and come to a solution. And the administration down there refused to negotiate. They just said no. And when they came to a decision, they said, well, it'll be in writing or in notes, but it won't actually be in the contract. And I feel that if an employee class and a group that works for you is important, you should value the work that they do. You should realize that they're important. We are professionals. We may not have a college education, but we have experience, we have knowledge, and we have the skills necessary to make sure that the students of our community are able to make it to school safely, to be fed, to have adequate heated buildings, to make sure that the lights are on, and that they have all their paperwork taken care of. So when they end their high school education or their education and they leave, they have a diploma, they have everything lined up, and everything's above board and everything's great, because it's not the teachers who do a lot of this paperwork. It's classified folks who are the registrar, who are the office managers, who are all the special programs people who make sure that the critical work that we do and make sure that this district works is done. So I encourage you to think about what your principles are, what you want to stand for when we go into bargaining, because we're going into bargaining and we're looking forward to try and solve problems as we come together and collaborate, because that's the only way we're going to get through bargaining to the other side with us still having a healthy relationship. And I really think that this school district and the people in the position that are going to be doing bargaining are really engaged on that. I see a night and day difference between us, between this administration and the administration down in Eugene, and I'm actually really happy to work with the school district. So thank you.
Thank you. Maureen?
And I'll summarize mine as to say, we agree and we want to support this school district, that we have a legislative priority list as well, and we'll be working on getting adequate support for schools.
Thank you.
That was really short, Maureen. Wow. She's really good back. Next superintendent.
Really briefly, just really proud that our district was invited to participate in Washington, D.C. in the conversation regarding college and career planning. The work that we have been doing is, it's nice to see getting that type of attention. Really it was Steve's brainchild back in the day. And then Brooke, with all of her energy and expertise in the community, has kind of really brought that to life for us. So thanks to both of you very much. And then Travis, I know you've been very involved in that work as well. So just very proud of that effort. And to all of our board members, happy holidays. Just if tonight is any indication of the work that you do and the abuse that you sometimes take, just for this volunteer position, really appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
What do we think?
You don't know.
Board time, Eric.
So please, just want to make one point just to review the sex ed policy that we passed tonight. Like I said, I think it's just the beginning of a conversation, not the end of the conversation. I thought it was important to pass it because now we have it explicitly in policy that all this stuff is going to go up on the web for you guys to review. So really the next step is in your hands. Please review it. Please bring to our attention anything that you do think is a serious issue.
Thank you. I just want to wish everyone also happy holidays and Merry Christmas. And I just want to end because I was just thinking about when you said, college education, and I just want to leave with this thought. Share a story about a man who traveled to Africa on a caravan to find elephants, and it was led by a zoologist, and the Zulu warrior was the one who drove the van. And the entire travels, he could tell you everything about the elephant, the gestation, every single detail the zoologist told you about the elephant. They couldn't find the elephant. They drove and then they drove and they drove, and he kept going on with all the facts and all the knowledge that he had of the elephants. And all of a sudden the Zulu warrior pulls over and he looks and he's quiet and he says, "Oh, over there by the trees." And there it was, a herd of elephants. So I just wanted to share that, and I think sometimes I tend to, you have to balance that intellect and instinct is what that is. And I just want to just end this year as we come into entering New Year's. This is an amazing, amazing place, really seriously. And I am so proud of the investment that we've made in the Career and College Pathway Program. I mean, it's incredible. And with that, I'm just ready to take a nice deep breath and get ready to begin a new amazing year.
One day. Thank you everyone for the conversation tonight. I hope thankful for the teachers that were able to, parents who were able to come. Also the teachers got the Liberty Health team there standing in the back. I was afraid they were going to escape before. And to thank them too for their efforts. My kids went through the Liberty, Point of Liberty path, and I enjoyed that experience. And it's good to reflect as we have the opportunities to look at curriculum and evaluate it carefully to apply our own good judgments and work on it. So it's been a great conversation. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and hope everyone has a good year.
Monty?
I've got a negative and a positive. First negative is I'm very disappointed in the governor of our state and the budget he submitted, which was flat. We're going to get the same money that we got last year for the next two bienniums, which is ridiculous. And you should be calling the governor and telling him that that's unacceptable. Positive is I've been sitting in all our PLCs at secondary schools, and I was pleasantly surprised, pleasantly surprised about the high level of professionalism and candidness that goes on in those PLCs. They're working for our kids. They put their egos aside, and they're really hard at work trying to make sure our kids get educated. So you should sit in on one occasionally. We should video them so that our community sees what the professionals do in our classrooms outside their classrooms, and so it was gratifying.
Awesome. Janine?
A few things. I wanted to say that Tobias Elementary participated in the Lego robotics competition recently. They did a program that talking about creating an app for the 3 R's for recycling, so it was pretty exciting.
Were you there? Did you see them?
Huh?
I saw them.
Oh, yeah.
Well, great. I read their presentation. I saw the robots.
I was really bummed because I was.
And they had a little cheer. Everyone had to have a cheer, and their cheer was.
Do you know?
I couldn't do it. But everyone there remembered it. I stopped.
Well, I appreciate you going. You know, this program, so two folks from Vernier, myself and Pam Lamb, got to come together and with the group and talk about ideas and where they can get their information for the 3 R's and different resources and how they do an app. And so these kids, and then we came together once they did their presentation, and I was like, oh my gosh, these are elementary students that are putting this together and are going to be presenting, and it was so impressive. First in Robot Performance Award, first place in World Class Project Award. So our students are doing some really terrific things, and that's at Tobias. And another thing that I do as a tradition is that every year at this time of year I go around and I read How the Grinch Stole Christmas to all the elementary schools. I visit classrooms. Sometimes it's one classroom, one time it was 4 classrooms in one school. And I've done 11 schools so far, and this time gives me a wonderful little snapshot of what's going on in our classrooms, what's going on in our schools. And let me tell you, if the thanks that I get for, oh, thank you so much for coming to read, is nothing than what it does for my heart, because it totally fills my cup. These students are amazing. We don't just read a story, we go from many different directions. We go into the Grinch, we go into 6th grade classroom that I went to McKinney, which they're building boats at McKinney Elementary School. Real boats, designing them, building them. Fantastic. And we talked about politics and voting system and how it was just amazing how this all works. But I want to tell you a couple stories. West Union, I sat in this class, and afterwards we were talking about the story, and this one student we were asking about different aspects about traditions and different things, and this one student quietly raises his hand, and he says that his nickname is Max, which is the dog in the story. And we said, oh yeah, it's after my great-granddad. And we said, oh, that's nice. Well, he died yesterday. And we were like, oh, yeah. And he says, yep, this is like six years old, okay? Yep, heart attack. And it's been really sad. And before the teacher, Miss Peterson, and I could even look at each other, before she could even say anything, this other little student turns around to Max and says, I'm sorry for your loss. So then I have to look up at the ceiling and think of a joke, because my eyes are just filling up with tears that these are the hearts, these are the things, this is compassion that's happening. And I could tell that her class, Miss Peterson's class, had incredible heart. And so to go and then visit, 1st grade classrooms that, are just the questions that they ask, but also, some of these classrooms are 31 and 34, and I think are fantastic. They're doing amazing things, but we also need to we all talked about it, the importance of lowering of class size. No matter the resources that we can give them and the ability, the things that support we can give them, it does make a difference to have a smaller class size. And so, like I said, when those 6th graders are building boats, if you have an opportunity, go do it. Some of these schools, I'm in there for a half an hour. Some of these schools, I'm in there for over an hour. So you just contact the principal, say, I'd like to read, and you visit, and let me tell you, your cup will be full. So thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful winter break. As a mom of a senior at Liberty High School, it was a little much for me to look at that date of our next meeting is January 2015, because this is the year my son graduates. So this year's gonna go. So that's all.
We've been meaning to talk to you.
So, sorry, I just wanted to share those.
Thank you, Glenn.
Well, I have to say, first off, thanks for everyone being here today. And also, Christmas is my favorite time of year. Just so thankful for so many things. But I wanted to share one thing. Now, I may not look like it, but I'm actually from Hawaii. I was born there originally. I lived there for 11 years. So I will wish you Merry Christmas in that tongue. Mele Kalikimaka e Haoli Wakiho. So which means Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you. Good night.
Hawaii sunshine. I just have a couple super quick. Thank you to LSP. Thank you, Steve, for your leadership. The work that your department is doing is amazing, and the amount of time that you're putting in when we throw you curveballs or when you're trying to adapt and really listen to your community. So Travis, and I know your CCAC was doing a ton of time, and Brooke with the college work. It's just amazing all of the work that LSP does. In my other work, I get to visit other school districts, and I will continue to say this. Every day I am proud that this is the district I am in, and I am thankful that I'm not in some other districts. Don't name them. Not going to name them, but I'm just telling you this is where it's at. And I'm not sure, I'm guessing it's probably left, but thank you for the new art on the walls. I really love it. It needs to be freshened up, and it's lovely to see. And with that, happy holidays. Thank you for bearing with us for so late. We're done.
Blew my chance. That's Saturday and Sunday at Hill High.